President Donald Trump's economic team is proposing a sweeping overhaul of the global financial system. At the heart of this ambitious idea is what they're calling the Mar-a-Lago Accord, named after Trump's private Florida resort. While the name may sound informal, the underlying strategy is anything but. The goal is to reposition the United States at the center of the global economy by weakening the US dollar and redrawing trade relationships to favor American industry. The premise of the plan rests on a bold idea that the US dollar is too strong for America's own good. A strong dollar makes foreign goods cheaper in the US, which sounds good for consumers, but it also makes American products more expensive overseas, harming US exports and hurting domestic manufacturers. According to Trump's economic advisors, this has led to a hollowing out of the American working class as factories shut down and jobs move overseas. To make matters worse, the US government is burdened with over $30 trillion in national debt, with annual interest payments now exceeding even the military budget. Part of the issue is that countries like China and other major exporters sell far more to the US than they buy in return. Instead of recycling their trade surpluses into US debt as they once did, they're now driving up the dollar's value, creating a vicious cycle. Trump's economic team, led by former Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent and key advisors, proposes to reset this balance. Their plan includes two major steps. First, devaluing the US dollar intentionally, and second, swapping existing US debt with ultra-long-term 100-year bonds, which would significantly reduce the interest burden on the US Treasury. In theory, this would allow America to pay less for its debt while making US exports more competitive. But how does the US convince the rest of the world to go along with a plan that's clearly in America's favor and not theirs? Bessent's idea is to categorize other nations based on their willingness to cooperate. Countries would be divided into three groups: green for friendly nations that align with US interests, yellow for neutral countries, red for those considered adversarial. Green countries would be rewarded with lower tariffs and military protection, while red countries would face steep tariffs and no defense commitments. This approach ties military alliances directly to economic cooperation, creating a system where global players must pay to remain on good terms with the US. However, such a strategy comes with serious risks. Alienating allies could push them to form new economic partnerships with China or other rising powers that offer more stability without political strings attached. There's also uncertainty about whether Trump, known for his shifting policies, would maintain a consistent approach even if such a framework were adopted. The Mar-a-Lago Accord draws inspiration from the 1985 Plaza Accord, where the US, Japan, West Germany, France, and the UK agreed to devalue the dollar to fix trade imbalances. It worked for a while, but the modern global economy is far more complex, and the countries that now hold large trade surpluses with the US, like China, Mexico, and Vietnam, do not have the same incentives to cooperate. Back in the 1980s, the US provided strong security guarantees to its allies. Today, countries like China don't depend on US military support and may see such offers as coercive rather than cooperative. One key roadblock is China, the world's largest holder of US debt and America's biggest trading rival. China remembers the impact of the Plaza Accord on Japan, where a rising yen contributed to a massive economic bubble and eventual stagnation. Chinese policymakers view that history as a cautionary tale and are unlikely to let their currency appreciate under US pressure, especially now with their economy already showing signs of slowdown. If China refuses to participate, it could derail the entire plan. And even if the US proceeds unilaterally, trying to devalue its currency and impose tariffs, the result could be destabilizing for the global economy. Many smaller countries with currencies tied to the dollar or those holding American debt would be caught in the ripple effect, experiencing inflation, trade disruption, and financial instability. There's also internal contradiction in the Trump approach. While advocating for a weaker dollar to boost exports, Trump has also championed the dollar's dominance in global reserves, something that typically requires a strong, stable currency. You can't have both. So would the Mar-a-Lago Accord bring jobs back to America? It's hard to say. Today's global supply chains are deeply interconnected, and tariffs or currency moves don't guarantee factories returning to US soil. Just like past trade wars, the impact would depend on a range of unpredictable reactions from businesses, consumers, and governments.
Like, comment, and subscribe.